I cannot wait to have this conversation with Candace Bushnell, because if you don't know, which you should know if you're a woman who loves to read, is that she is the author of the best-selling books, Sex and the City. And now Candace has started a new conversation and co-authored a new book called Rules of Being a Girl. So Candace, let's get into this.
Great.
What are the rules for being a girl today?
That was one of the things we were talking about in the book. There are so many conflicting rules and conflicting, presentations of what girls and women are supposed to be like. It is about how a young feminist student starts to examine what's going on in her high school, and she gets caught up with this predatory teacher. Nobody believes her, and that really sparks her looking into what these rules are. And the rules are things like don't be desperate, don't be a prude, give him what he wants, don't give in to him. And for me personally, these are the rules that I remember growing up with, all these conflicting rules when I was younger, and they're still going on today. It's like, we say to young women, you can take over the world, but go and get breast implants. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? To be, attractive to men. So these are really confusing messages.
I read a quote from you, which I think is great, which you're touching upon, which is every generation, it seems like every generation of women needs to relearn feminism, right? Yes. So the question is, how do women respond in a way where the next generation does not have to relearn the same lessons, right? So the situation you're describing of your character in your new book, she's a high school student, and there's a teacher that, thinks she's very smart and ambitious, and things go in a different direction, and she's surprised. This is not a story that's unique to hh school, to college. This is something.
No, I mean, to me, it's basically the story of, and this happens so much. A woman, she works really hard. You're smart. You've got the product. You've got this. You've got that, and then it's the patriarchy's way of reducing you to nothing, to saying, no, it's just about sex. Mm-hmm. And, that's my interest in you, actually. And in this case, if you don't go along with it, I'm going to retaliate, which is even, more frightening. But it's really about, these are systems, these are social systems that are deeply, deeply ingrained. And the message from, I think, the patriarchy to women, although we now luckily have other messages, but still that overall message is, be secondary, be about sex and babies and motherhood.
So let me kind of bring this to a way where we can analyze where this institutionalized system starts, right? So we have shows and advertising and on all forms of media that are saying to women and young girls that you need to look better, you need to be better, and then that's what sells. So it's kind of like a perpetual cycle where girls come in and they have to be part of the process too. So my question is specifically, where do we break that cycle? We understand when we talk about media advertising, we talk about who's creating these filters and these apps, right? We understand that there are men, majority of them, because we know the statistics of lack of women leadership, a lot of men are making these decisions, correct?
This is one of the things that I realized when I did a piece on Tinder in my last book, Is There Still Sex in the City, which is about you know, being a woman over 50 and, you know, navigating the world. And one of the things that I found was, you know, a lot of women who bought into the, you know, the idea that the patriarchy is going to take care of you, you know, at the end, these were the women who, if they got divorced, they really had nothing, you know. So that, but that's the whole sort of life cycle.
Right. So
But
what,
you know, I mean, to me, it starts, you know, it starts very early. I mean, it certainly starts in high school. I mean, we see that, you know, until girls are 12 or 13, which is actually when menstruation begins, you know, they're very bold and they're courageous. And then once they get into, you know, junior high, where, you know, sex roles start to become very important. And, you know, and that's when you see women losing their confidence. You know, that's when you see the girl who was like, hey, I was great in science. Well, you know, now oh, I can't even do math. You know, but there's such a message. I do think it really starts in high school, that there is this message of, you know, that's where you really have the clicks, and you see people behaving in heterosexual kinds of ways. And, you know, I mean, this is, you know, this is like ingrained heterosexual behavior.
so let me interject a little bit about it's so interesting what you're saying, that it starts at high school. And I think that, you know, this is what we're saying, that the media messages start at that age. Like, girls start looking at things around them, what they read, what they see on TV, what they see in commercials, and now what they see on their phone. And then they start responding and developing a personality that fits what they're being told that they need to be. So there,
Yes.
it's
I mean, this is
merge
yes. And
of a
you know,
consumer product.
yes. And this is a real syndrome that, you know, was something that I used to write about quite a bit when I was in my 20s. I wrote for women's magazines. I mean, you know, I wanted to write about women. I wanted to write about relationships. So you're sort of relegated to women's magazines, but it's fine. But one of the things was, it was so common to see young women literally trying on different identities to try to please the different type of guy who they were with. And in fact, that was actually even like a comedic trope. But it really speaks to how deeply ingrained this is. It's like, now we say, oh, be yourself. But back, you know, but we also say, change your personality in order to get along with a certain kind of guy. It's like, if he plays tennis, you play tennis. If he likes it cold in the apartment, you like it cold in the apartment.
So let's talk a little bit about how what you put out there, right? You've been writing for women's issues for so long, and you've seen quite a bit of age demographics too, as far as your readers. Now, as far as what your contribution is to change the dynamic, I'm assuming you chose this younger character this time to intervene at an earlier age so girls can wake up and be prepared. And then how you see what you are putting out there to contribute to the change of the narrative. You know, what personally, what you would say to a young girl that you were just having coffee with who hasn't read your book, to be like, hey, like, this is what I want to tell you for the next 15, 20 years of how you should do what you need to do to be a powerful person walking around.
Well, you know, I really think that has to come out of, you've got to have a strong belief in yourself. You know, you have to, as a woman, feel like you can say no to men. You have to be able to say no, you know, to the system. Like, no, I'm not going to, maybe engage in the beauty Olympics. Maybe I'm going to, pursue something else, but it's very scary to do that because we aren't, and this is one of the things that are changing, but we're not presented in the past with images of women who are happy and quote successful on their own, for instance, being single and making their own money. That's just not like that's not shown to women. It's like, hey, this is a way that you could be happy. What's shown to women is you got to be married, you got to have kids. That's how you're going to be happy. And if you happen to be successful and make your own money and don't have to rely on the patriarchal system to get along, well, look at you. You're alone. You must be miserable. So it's like we don't present women with, a lot of options of like, this is how your life could look in the future and you can be happy. There's only one way we present to them that they can be
That's
happy.
brilliant, Candace. And what's really interesting to me is that you've written about so many characters that are strong women. And you're speaking about how it really comes down to what you think of yourself. So, okay, we have media advertising, we have consumer industries that are pushing this message, but at the end of the day, it's what you think of yourself. How are you going to navigate this world as a young, ambitious girl and make it? And my question to you is, since you write about strong women, you wrote about this young girl in your book, where do you get your strength from? What messages did you get growing up, or maybe what you maybe rebelled against? It could be either way, I'm not sure, that really hone in on that skill of owning your personal power and finding your voice?
That is a good question. And I think that, first of all, I have two younger sisters, did not grow up around boys. And I also, my father was like he literally was like he was a rocket scientist. And, he wasn't interested in sports and all of that. And so he really questioned, really questioned like sexism in a way. And it was something that I was hyper aware of at a very young age. I mean, honestly, even when I was 8, I remember being so angry about, because you have to remember, this was the 60s. I mean, there was a line, men, women, boys, girls. You were told every day. It was like brainwashing, what a boy was, what girls were. And I mean, I thought that the boys were actually horrible. And it was all, it was all quite, it was unfair. And that this sexism was just wrong. There were so many messages, and I was just so struck by that.
When you see what you have seen as far as the different stages of feminism and the same institutionalized system of sexism showing up again and again, what motivates you and what keeps you going to write through your personal power and share your voice to change this dynamic? What helps you to keep moving forward?
That's a good question. I think I think it's a passion for, speaking out. I mean, I feel like if you, feel like you have something, it's, always hoping that one has something to say. I think that's really it. And, I do think that there definitely are changes going on. And, it's concrete things that make the changes. Like there's so many things where, I mean, in some ways it is important, like in a sense, what's on the outside, what people's lives look like. Women are so much better educated, and they're going to be better educated than men. And I do think that, we're going to see changes in the
So you have
future.
hope. Hope keeps
I
you
do,
moving forward. Is that right?
yes, I have hope. I have hope. I mean, I also have fears that things can go back, easily to where they were. And I think, it's just really important for women to keep educating themselves, own your ambition, own your desire to be successful.
Well, thank you, Candace. I think that what you write about is important. I think it's everything we consume should be seen as beyond entertainment. And I think that you putting your spirit and your words and your encouragement to that young girl that picks up that book that says, I've been there or I don't want to be there, is going to learn a lot. So I thank you for moving forward, and I thank you for being hopeful.
Oh, thank you. Great to talk to you.
I bid you peace.